The aftermath of the battle left the crew of the Eclipse physically and emotionally drained. The ship, though victorious, bore the scars of combat. Panels flickered unpredictably, corridors were littered with debris, and the faint smell of burnt metal lingered in the air. But despite the damage, the Eclipse remained operational, a testament to its ancient engineers' unparalleled skill. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, staring out at the vast emptiness where enemy fleets had once loomed. His mind raced with questions about what came next. The Eclipse had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, but the cost of wielding such power weighed heavily on him. Every shot fired, every ship disabled, carried consequences far beyond the battlefield. "We did it," Lieutenant Rachel Munro said softly, breaking the silence. She leaned against the railing beside Daniel, her rifle still slung over her shoulder. "We held them off." "For now," Daniel replied, his voice low. "But this isn't over. Those factions won't give up easily. They'll regroup, bring more ships, and come back stronger. We can't keep fighting like this forever." Rachel nodded grimly. "Then what's the plan? Do we run? Hide somewhere deeper in the galaxy?" Daniel shook his head. "No, running isn't an option. This ship, it's too important. If we abandon it, someone else will find it, and they might not use it the way we would. We need to protect it." As if on cue, Aegis's calm voice echoed through the room. "Incoming transmission detected. Source, United Human Assembly, audio only." The United Human Assembly was one of the largest governing bodies among humanity's scattered colonies. Though their authority was often questioned, they represented a significant portion of human space. Daniel exchanged a glance with Rachel before nodding. "Patch it through." A male voice, calm but firm, came over the speakers. "Captain Carter, this is Chancellor Marcus Hale of the United Human Assembly. I trust you are aware of the gravity of your discovery. The Eclipse is a matter of galactic importance, and its existence cannot remain unaddressed. We request permission to send representatives aboard for discussions regarding its future." Daniel frowned. The request sounded reasonable on the surface, but he knew better than to trust appearances. The UHA wasn't known for its altruism, and their interest in the Eclipse likely stemmed from self-serving motives. "Tell them we'll consider it," Daniel instructed Rachel. Turning to her, he added, "But we're not letting anyone board until we know exactly who we're dealing with. For all we know, this could be a ploy to take control of the ship." Rachel relayed the message, then turned back to Daniel. "What do you think they'll do?" "They'll try diplomacy first," Daniel said. "But if that fails, they'll resort to force. Either way, we need to prepare for anything." Meanwhile, Dr. Emily Dawson continued her work in the archives, poring over data recovered from the depths of the Eclipse. Her discoveries painted a clearer picture of the ship's origins and its purpose. What she found both amazed and troubled her. "Captain," Emily called out as Daniel entered the Sci makeshift lab. She gestured toward a holographic display showing schematics and text translated from the ancient logs. "I've uncovered something critical. The Eclipse wasn't just built as a warship or an ark. It was designed as a seed ship." "A seed ship?" Daniel asked, stepping closer. "Yes," Emily explained. "Its creators intended it to carry not just people, but knowledge, culture, and technology. Everything needed to rebuild civilization. In essence, it was meant to preserve humanity's essence, not just its survival, but its identity." Daniel absorbed the information, his expression thoughtful. "So it's not just a weapon or a relic, it's a legacy." "Exactly," Emily agreed. "But there's more. According to these logs, the Eclipse was part of a larger fleet sent to establish new colonies across the stars. Something went wrong during their journey, possibly sabotage or internal conflict, and most of the fleet vanished. Only the Eclipse survived, hidden away in the asteroid field." Daniel rubbed his temples. the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. If this is true, then the eclipse represents more than just our past. It's a key to our future, and that makes it even more dangerous in the wrong hands. As word of the eclipse's capabilities spread, tensions rose among humanity's factions. Debates raged across the galaxy about how to handle such a powerful artifact. Some argued for unity, proposing that the eclipse be used as a symbol of cooperation. Others saw it as a means to assert dominance, advocating for military control. On board the eclipse, the crew faced mounting pressure from outside forces. Diplomatic envoys arrived daily, each faction vying for influence. Chief Engineer Laura Simmons grew increasingly frustrated as she listened to their demands. "They're treating us like children arguing over a toy," Laura muttered to Ensign Kyle Bennett as they worked in the engineering bay. "Don't they realize what's at stake here?" Kyle adjusted a control panel, his brow furrowed. "They see it as power, plain and simple. To them, the eclipse isn't a piece of history, it's a weapon. Whoever controls it controls the galaxy." Laura sighed, wiping grease from her hands. "And that's why we can't let any one group have it. This ship belongs to everyone, or no one." Back on the bridge, Daniel convened a meeting with his senior staff to discuss their options. The room buzzed with tension as each member voiced their thoughts. "We can't trust the UHA," Rachel insisted. "If we hand over the eclipse, they'll turn it into a tool of oppression. They'll use it to enforce their will on the colonies." "Doctor," Emily countered, her tone measured but passionate. "But we also can't ignore the fact that the eclipse is a shared heritage. Humanity needs to come together to decide its fate. Keeping it secret won't solve anything. It'll only create more division." Chief Engineer Laura chimed in. "There has to be a middle ground. Maybe we can propose turning the eclipse into a neutral zone, a research station or museum. That way, it serves as a reminder of what we've lost without becoming a weapon again." Daniel listened carefully, weighing the arguments. Finally, he spoke. "Compromise might be our best chance. But we need leverage. If we present the eclipse as a unifying force rather than a threat, we might stand a chance of bringing factions together instead of driving them apart." With a plan forming, Daniel reached out to Chancellor Hale of the UHA. Through careful negotiation, he proposed transforming the eclipse into a neutral hub, a place where humanity could reconnect with its past and plan for its future. The idea resonated with many, including some rival factions wary of escalating conflict. Over the following weeks, representatives from various groups arrived aboard the eclipse. Meetings were tense but productive as leaders debated how to move forward. Slowly, a fragile consensus began to emerge. The eclipse would serve as a beacon of hope rather than a harbinger of war. As the diplomatic process unfolded, the crew worked tirelessly to repair and restore the ship. Cryogenic pods were stabilized, ensuring the safety of the thousands of humans preserved within. Archives were cataloged and secured, preserving the knowledge contained within. Weapons systems were locked down, preventing unauthorized access. For Daniel, the transformation of the eclipse felt like a redemption of sorts. It had been built as a machine of destruction, yet now it stood poised to become something greater, a symbol of humanity's resilience and potential. One evening, as Daniel walked through the ship's expansive observation deck, he paused to gaze at the stars stretching endlessly beyond the viewport. Despite the challenges ahead, he allowed himself a moment of quiet optimism. The eclipse had emerged from centuries of hiding, shaking the galaxy to its core. But perhaps, just perhaps, it could also inspire a brighter future for humanity and for all who called the stars home. News of the eclipse spread faster than anyone on the Odyssey could have anticipated. Despite strict orders to keep the discovery confidential, fragments of information leaked through encrypted channels and reached the ears of powerful factions across the galaxy. Within days, humanity's scattered colonies buzzed with rumors about a massive human-built supercarrier buried in an asteroid field for centuries. Some hailed it as proof of their ancestors' greatness, while others saw it as a threat capable of upsetting the delicate balance of power. On board the Eclipse, Captain Daniel Carter and his crew worked tirelessly to understand the ship's capabilities. Dr. Emily Dawson spent long hours in the archives, piecing together fragments of logs and schematics. Chief Engineer Laura Simmons and Ensign Kyle Bennett scoured the vessel's systems, cataloging weapons, shields, and propulsion mechanisms far beyond anything currently available. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe led patrols through the labyrinthine corridors, ensuring no hidden dangers lurked in the shadows. But the more they learned, the more uneasy Daniel became. The Eclipse wasn't just a relic, it was a weapon, a colossal machine designed not only to protect, but also to destroy. Its arsenal included plasma cannons, gravity disruptors, and something called the pulsar cannon, described in fragmented records as a planet killer. Whoever controlled the Eclipse would hold unparalleled power, and Daniel knew that wouldn't go unnoticed for long. His fears were confirmed when Aegis, the ship's AI, alerted them to incoming fleets. Multiple vessels detected approaching from various sectors, the calm mechanical voice announced over the intercom. Species identified: Krylos Collective, Zentari Dominion, and Terran Coalition forces. Estimated time of arrival: 6 standard hours. Daniel clenched his fists. The Krylos and Zentari were rival alien species known for their aggression and expansionist tendencies. If they got their hands on the Eclipse, the consequences would be catastrophic. Even the Terran Coalition, a faction of humans vying for dominance in the galaxy, couldn't be trusted, not when so much was at stake. "We need to prepare for battle," Daniel said, addressing his senior staff in the command center. "Aegis, how many automated defenses can you activate?" "Current operational capacity allows for full activation of point defense turrets, shield generators, and countermeasures," Aegis replied. "However, manual intervention may be required for advanced weaponry," Laura nodded grimly. "That means we'll have to man some of the stations ourselves. There's no way we can rely entirely on automation against multiple fleets." Rachel stepped forward, her expression resolute. "I'll organize the ground teams. We'll position ourselves at key points throughout the ship to repel any boarding parties." Emily hesitated before speaking. "Captain, there's another issue. The Eclipse has cryogenic pods containing thousands of humans. If those pods are damaged during the fight, we could lose irreplaceable lives." Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. He hadn't forgotten about the frozen passengers. They were a moral responsibility he couldn't ignore. But protecting them meant risking the safety of his crew. "We'll prioritize shielding the cryo chambers. Kyle, work with Aegis to reroute power to those areas, and make sure the environmental controls stay stable." As preparations intensified, tension mounted among the crew. This wasn't just a mission anymore, it was a test of survival. For many, the thought of facing entire fleets was overwhelming. Private Jacob Hayes voiced his concerns during a briefing. "Sir, we're outnumbered," he said, glancing around the room. "Even with the Eclipse's firepower, we can't take on all 3 factions at once. Shouldn't we consider evacuating?" Daniel understood the sentiment, but retreat wasn't an option. If we leave, the Eclipse falls into their hands. Do you really think they'll use it responsibly? No. They'll turn it into a tool of conquest. Our job is to prevent that, no matter the cost. The hours passed quickly as the crew fortified the ship. Laura and Kyle worked miracles, bringing online experimental systems that had lain dormant for millennia. Rachel drilled the security teams, ensuring everyone knew their roles. Meanwhile, Emily continued deciphering the archives, hoping to find something, anything that might give them an edge. Finally, the moment arrived. Through the viewport of the bridge, Daniel watched as the first wave of ships appeared on the horizon. sleek Krylos cruisers formed a tight formation, flanked by the angular warships of the Zentari. Behind them, the familiar silhouette of Terran coalition vessels loomed ominously. "They're hailing us," Rachel reported, her tone clipped. "Put them on screen," Daniel ordered. 3 faces appeared on the main display. A Krylos commander, with sharp features and glowing eyes, a Zentari leader cloaked in shimmering armor, and a human admiral representing the Terran coalition. Each demanded surrender, claiming rightful ownership of the Eclipse. Their voices overlapped, creating a chaotic din. Daniel raised a hand, silencing the comm channel. Then, with unwavering resolve, he addressed them. "This ship belongs to humanity. It is a relic of our past, and we will not allow it to fall into the wrong hands. Leave now or face the consequences." The response was immediate. Plasma torpedoes streaked across space, slamming into the Eclipse's shields. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered under the impact. But the shields held firm, absorbing the blows without faltering. "Aegis, return fire," Daniel commanded. The Eclipse roared to life, its weapons unleashing devastating salvos. Point defense turrets swiveled to intercept incoming projectiles, while larger cannons fired beams of energy that tore through enemy formations. The sheer scale of destruction was breathtaking and terrifying. Below decks, the crew fought to maintain control. Laura monitored the reactor core, ensuring it didn't overload under the strain of combat. Kyle coordinated with Aegis to adjust shield frequencies, countering enemy tactics. Rachel led her team in repelling boarding parties that managed to breach the hull, engaging in fierce skirmishes amidst the ship's dimly lit corridors. Amidst the chaos, Emily made a critical discovery. Buried deep within the archives was a schematic detailing the pulsar cannon, a weapon capable of emitting a pulse of energy strong enough to disable entire fleets. But activating it came with risks. The cannon required immense power, and using it might destabilize the ship's systems. "Captain, we have a choice," Emily said, her voice urgent. "We can use the pulsar cannon to end this fight quickly, but it could damage the Eclipse. Or we can keep fighting conventionally and hope reinforcements arrive in time." Daniel weighed the options carefully. Reinforcements were unlikely to come anytime soon. The nearest Allied fleet was weeks away. Using the pulsar cannon was risky, but it offered the best chance of survival. "Prepare the cannon," he decided. "Laura, divert all non-essential power to the weapon. Everyone else, brace for impact." The countdown began. Outside, the enemy fleets regrouped, launching a final assault. Wave after wave of missiles and lasers pounded the Eclipse's shields, pushing them to their limits. Inside, the crew held their breath, praying the ship could withstand the barrage. Then, with a deafening roar, the pulsar cannon fired. A brilliant sphere of energy erupted from the Eclipse, expanding outward like a supernova. Enemy ships caught in its radius were instantly disabled, their systems fried by the overwhelming surge. The battlefield fell silent as the remaining vessels retreated, unwilling to risk further losses. When the dust settled, the crew emerged from their stations, exhausted but victorious. The Eclipse had endured, though not without scars. Panels sparked in the corridors, and sections of the hull bore scorch marks from near misses. But the ship and its crew had survived. As Daniel stood on the bridge, gazing at the empty void, where the enemy fleets had been, he felt a mix of relief and dread. The battle was over, but the war had only begun. Word of the Eclipse's existence would spread even faster now, drawing attention from every corner of the galaxy. Humanity's greatest discovery had become its greatest burden. And yet, despite the challenges ahead, Daniel couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. The Eclipse was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol, a reminder of humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and potential. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. The galaxy would never forget what had been hidden for centuries. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew gathered in the main conference room, their faces a mix of excitement and unease. Dr. Emily Dawson stood at the center of the room, her hands resting on a table covered in data pads and holographic displays. She had spent hours poring over the information retrieved from the eclipse, and what she had uncovered was both fascinating and unsettling. "This isn't just some abandoned ship," Emily began, addressing Captain Daniel Carter and the rest of the senior staff. "The logs we've managed to translate suggest that the eclipse was built during a time of great turmoil, a catastrophic war that threatened to wipe out humanity entirely." Daniel leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Are you saying this thing is older than recorded history, older than Earth itself?" Emily nodded. "Yes. Based on the fragments we've pieced together, it appears humanity was far more advanced, thousands of years ago than we ever imagined. The eclipse wasn't just a warship. It was an ark, a last-ditch effort to preserve human life and knowledge in case the war destroyed everything." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Chief Engineer Laura Simmons broke the silence. "But if it was meant to save humanity, why didn't it work? Why is it still here, buried in an asteroid field?" "That's the part I can't figure out yet," Emily admitted. "The logs are incomplete. They mention something called the Great Exodus, where fleets of ships like the Eclipse were supposed to leave for a new home, but there's no record of them reaching their destination. Something went wrong." Captain Carter rubbed his temples, deep in thought. "So we've got a supercarrier older than civilization sitting right outside our door, and we don't even know why it failed. This could change everything we know about our past." Before anyone could respond, Lieutenant Rachel Monroe entered the room, her expression grim. "Captain, we've got a problem. The boarding team reported strange activity inside the Eclipse. Doors opening on their own, lights flickering, and Private Hayes says he heard voices." Voices. The word hung in the air, sending a chill through the room. Daniel straightened up, his tone firm. "What kind of voices?" Rachel hesitated. "He couldn't understand them. Said they sounded like whispers in languages he'd never heard before. And then one of the team members disappeared." The news sent a ripple of tension through the group. Disappearances were never a good sign, especially in unexplored territory. Daniel exchanged a glance with Emily, who looked equally troubled. "I'm going down there," Daniel said finally. "We need answers, and I'm not leaving my people behind." Laura raised a hand. "If you're going, I'm coming with you. If these systems are really operational, someone needs to make sure they don't blow us all to pieces." Daniel agreed, and within minutes they were suited up and heading back to the shuttle. Joining them were Rachel, armed and ready, and Ensign Kyle Bennett, whose technical expertise might prove useful. As the shuttle approached the Eclipse, the massive ship loomed larger than ever, its metallic surface gleaming faintly under the distant light of a dying star. Once inside, the atmosphere felt heavier than before. The corridors seemed alive, humming with energy that hadn't been there earlier. Laura immediately set to work examining a nearby control panel, her fingers flying over the unfamiliar interface. "These circuits are insane," she muttered. "They're self-repairing. I've never seen anything like it." Kyle knelt beside her, studying the glowing symbols on the screen. "Do you think we can access the central database? Maybe find out what happened to the crew, or where they were headed?" "It's worth a shot," Laura replied, pulling out a small device and attaching it to the panel. "Let me try to sync it with our systems. If I can get a connection, we might be able to download some of the data." While Laura worked, Daniel and Rachel moved deeper into the ship, following the path taken by the original boarding team. The air grew colder as they progressed, and the walls seemed to close in around them. Faint echoes of footsteps echoed through the halls, though none of them could tell if the sounds were real or imagined. "Over here," Rachel said suddenly, pointing to a doorway partially hidden by debris. "This must be where Hayes said he heard the voices." Daniel stepped closer, shining his light into the darkened room. Inside, the floor was littered with dust and broken equipment. In the corner, a faint shimmer caught his eye. It was a holographic projection, flickering weakly. As they approached, the image stabilized, revealing a man in a uniform unlike any they'd seen before. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a sense of urgency. "To whoever finds this message," the man began, his voice steady despite the static interrupting his speech. "If you are human, know that the eclipse carries a burden greater than any weapon. Within its core lies the key to survival, but also destruction. Do not trust Aegis blindly. It serves its purpose, but it does not feel." The message ended abruptly, leaving the group staring at the empty space where the hologram had been. Daniel turned to Rachel. "Aegis, that's the AI we spoke to earlier. What did he mean? Do not trust it?" Before Rachel could answer, a loud clang echoed through the corridor. They spun around, weapons raised, only to see Laura and Kyle rushing toward them. "You need to see this," Laura said breathlessly. "I managed to connect to the central system. The reactor core, it's still active, and it's powering up." Daniel's heart sank. "Active? How is that possible after all these centuries?" "I don't know," Laura admitted. "But if we don't stabilize it soon, it could overload. And if that happens..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. An overloaded reactor on a ship this size would be catastrophic, not just for the eclipse, but for the entire asteroid field and anyone nearby. "We need to get to the core," Daniel said firmly. "Lead the way." The journey to the reactor core was tense and fraught with danger. The ship seemed to resist their presence, doors slamming shut unexpectedly and lighting systems flickering erratically. At one point, they passed through a chamber filled with rows of cryogenic pods, each containing a human figure frozen in time. Emily's voice crackled over the comms, her tone shaken. "Those pods, they're holding people, thousands of them. This wasn't just a carrier, it was a lifeline, a way to transport entire populations." Daniel clenched his jaw. "Then we owe it to them to keep moving. Let's focus on stabilizing the core." Finally, they reached the reactor room, a cavernous space dominated by a massive cylindrical structure pulsing with blue energy. The hum of power was almost deafening, and waves of heat radiated outward, making the air shimmer. "This is incredible," Kyle whispered, staring at the core. "It's running on technology we can't even begin to understand." Laura wasted no time, pulling out her tools and connecting them to the control panel surrounding the reactor. Her fingers danced across the interface, trying to override the automatic processes threatening to destabilize the system. "I'm in," she announced after several tense moments. "But I'll need help. There's too much data for me to process alone." Kyle stepped forward, positioning himself beside her. Together, they worked frantically, deciphering codes and rerouting energy flows. Meanwhile, Daniel and Rachel kept watch, their weapons drawn, ready for anything. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and a mechanical voice filled the room. "Core stabilization initiated. External interference detected. Authorization required to proceed." Daniel frowned. "External interference? That's us. We're trying to fix it." "Aegis," Rachel called out, addressing the AI directly. "We're here to help. Humanity has returned. Grant us access to the core." There was a pause followed by a soft chime. "Authorization accepted. Core stability restored. Welcome aboard, humans." The tension in the room eased slightly as the reactor's glow softened, signaling that the immediate threat had passed. Laura let out a sigh of relief, wiping sweat from her brow. That was too close. One wrong move, and we'd have been vaporized. As the team regrouped, Daniel looked around the reactor room, his mind racing. The Eclipse was no ordinary ship. It was a relic of humanity's forgotten past, carrying secrets that could reshape the future. But it was also a potential danger. One that others in the galaxy would surely want to claim for themselves. "We need to secure this ship," Daniel said finally. "If word gets out about what we've found, every faction in the galaxy will come gunning for it. And I don't think Aegis is going to sit quietly if someone tries to take it," Rachel nodded. "We should prepare for the worst. Whoever built this thing clearly didn't intend for it to fall into the wrong hands." Daniel turned to Laura and Kyle. "Start cataloging everything you can. Weapons, defenses, propulsion systems, anything that might give us an edge. We're going to need all the help we can get." As the team dispersed to carry out their tasks, Daniel allowed himself a moment of reflection. The eclipse was a marvel, a testament to humanity's ingenuity and resilience. But it was also a reminder of how fragile that resilience could be. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Deep in the vast and silent expanse of space, the exploration vessel Odyssey drifted quietly through a dense asteroid field. The ship was small compared to the colossal rocks that floated around it, but its mission was anything but insignificant. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, his sharp eyes scanning the holographic display before him. The crew had been sent into this uncharted sector to investigate an unusual energy signature detected weeks earlier. At first, it seemed like just another routine assignment, but now, as the sensors picked up faint readings from within the asteroid field, something about the situation felt different. "Captain," Lieutenant Rachel Monroe called out from her station, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a hint of urgency. "The energy signature is stronger here. It's coming from deep inside the field." Daniel nodded slowly, his gaze fixed on the swirling mass of asteroids ahead. "Bring up the scans again. Let's see if we can pinpoint the source." Rachel tapped at her console, her fingers moving quickly across the glowing surface. A moment later, a three-dimensional image appeared on the main screen. It showed a cluster of large asteroids surrounding what looked like a massive object, buried beneath layers of rock and dust. The shape was irregular, but there was no mistaking its size. It dwarfed even the largest asteroids nearby. "What do you make of it?" Daniel asked, turning to Dr. Emily Dawson, who stood beside him. She was the mission's lead scientist, and her expertise often proved invaluable when dealing with unknown phenomena. Emily leaned closer to the screen, her brow furrowed in thought. "It's hard to say for sure without getting closer, but based on these readings, it's definitely artificial. Look at the symmetry of the structure underneath all that debris. Natural formations don't usually align like that." Daniel frowned. Artificial structures in uncharted space were rare, and most of them turned out to be relics left behind by alien civilizations. But something about this one felt off. He couldn't put his finger on it, but the idea of encountering aliens in such a remote area made him uneasy. Still, they had a job to do. "All right," he said finally. "Let's get closer. Prepare a shuttle team to investigate. I want eyes on that thing as soon as possible." The crew sprang into action, each member focusing on their assigned tasks. Within minutes, a small shuttle detached from the Odyssey and began weaving its way through the asteroid field. On board were 4 members of the crew: Lieutenant Monroe, Chief Engineer Laura Simmons, Private Jacob Hayes, and Ensign Kyle Bennett. They were chosen for their skills and experience, though none of them could have predicted what awaited them. As the shuttle approached the mysterious object, the view outside the windows became clearer. The structure was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Its surface was covered in thick layers of cosmic dust and debris, making it difficult to discern any details. But as they drew nearer, patches of metal began to emerge, glinting faintly in the dim light of distant stars. "This is incredible," Laura muttered, staring at the structure in awe. "Whatever it is, it's been here for a very long time." Jacob adjusted the controls, guiding the shuttle toward a gap in the debris where part of the structure was exposed. "I'm reading minimal radiation levels," he reported. "But I'm picking up faint traces of power signatures. Something inside might still be operational." "That's impossible," Emily's voice crackled over the comms from the Odyssey. If this thing has been sitting here for centuries, there's no way any systems could still be active. Check your readings again. Jacob double-checked the instruments, but the results remained the same. Readings are accurate, Doctor. There's definitely some kind of residual energy coming from inside. Daniel's voice cut in. Proceed with caution. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. The shuttle landed gently on a flat section of the structure, and the team disembarked, stepping onto the dusty surface. Their boots crunched against the metallic ground as they moved cautiously forward. The air was eerily still, and the only sound came from their breathing apparatuses. Ahead of them, a dark opening loomed, an entrance partially obscured by fallen debris. Laura scanned the area with her handheld device. This material, it's not like anything I've seen before. It's durable, almost indestructible. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. Rachel stepped forward, her rifle ready in case of danger. Let's move inside. We won't find answers standing out here. The team entered the structure, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The interior was vast and labyrinthine, with towering walls and narrow corridors stretching endlessly in every direction. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled stale as though it hadn't been disturbed in millennia. As they ventured deeper, strange symbols etched into the walls caught their attention. Look at this, Kyle said, pointing to one of the markings. Do these mean anything to you, Doctor? Emily examined the symbol closely. Not immediately. They don't match any known languages or writing systems, but they're definitely deliberate, not random scratches. The group pressed on, their footsteps echoing softly in the silence. Every so often, they passed what appeared to be control panels embedded in the walls. Some were cracked and broken, while others seemed intact but lifeless. Laura knelt beside one of the panels, running her scanner over it. These circuits, they're unlike anything modern tech uses, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. If we can figure out how to interface with them, we might be able to access whatever data is stored here. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows across the corridor. Then, with a low hum, the entire area lit up, revealing intricate designs and patterns carved into the ceiling. The team froze, stunned by the sudden change. What just happened? Jacob whispered, gripping his weapon tighter. I don't know, Rachel replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. But I don't think we did it. A faint whirring noise filled the corridor, growing louder with each passing second. Panels along the walls began to glow, and screens flickered to life, displaying streams of data in unfamiliar characters. In the center of the hallway, a holographic projection appeared, a rotating image of a starship surrounded by countless smaller vessels. It's human, Emily breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief. This whole place, it's human. The realization hit the team like a tidal wave. Everything around them, from the architecture to the technology, bore the unmistakable mark of human ingenuity. But how could that be? Humanity had only begun exploring the stars a few centuries ago. This place was ancient, far older than any recorded history. Before they could process the implications, a new sound echoed through the corridor, a mechanical voice, calm and measured, speaking in perfect English. Identity verification required, it intoned. Please state designation and purpose. The team exchanged nervous glances. None of them knew how to respond. Finally, Daniel's voice crackled over the comms. Tell it you're from Earth. See if it recognizes the name. Rachel cleared her throat and spoke clearly. We are humans from Earth. We seek knowledge and understanding. There was a pause, followed by a soft chime. Verification accepted. Welcome aboard the Eclipse. Aegis Online. With those words, the true nature of their discovery began to unfold. The Eclipse wasn't just a relic of the past, it was alive, aware, and waiting for them. And as the team realized the magnitude of what they had found, the galaxy beyond prepared to tremble at the implications. The new provisional government faced challenges from the very beginning. Transitioning from a corrupt system to one built on fairness and equality was no easy task. The scars left by the Council's betrayal ran deep, and trust had to be earned. Slowly, step by step. Ethan, Mia, Daniel, and others within the Resistance Alliance worked tirelessly to ensure that the promises made during the negotiations were kept. Ethan focused on designing systems to distribute resources fairly. He knew that food, medicine, and raw materials had been hoarded by the Council for too long, leaving countless colonies struggling to survive. Using data collected during their rebellion, he identified regions most in need and coordinated shipments to reach them. It wasn't just about sending supplies. It was about restoring dignity to those who had been ignored for years. Mia played a crucial role in monitoring the new government's operations. Her analytical skills helped root out remnants of corruption that still lingered in some areas. She set up oversight committees to ensure transparency, holding regular meetings where citizens could voice concerns and hold officials accountable. People began to see her as a guardian of justice, someone who truly cared about making things right. Daniel traveled between colonies, helping establish local councils and training volunteers to maintain order. His military background made him an invaluable asset, but it was his compassion that won people over. He listened to their stories, shared their struggles, and reminded them that they weren't alone. Slowly but surely, communities began to heal. Despite these efforts, not everyone welcomed the changes. Some former Council loyalists refused to accept the new order, forming underground groups to sabotage the provisional government. They spread misinformation, attacked supply convoys, and even attempted assassinations of key leaders. These acts of resistance served as reminders that the fight for freedom was far from over. One such group, calling themselves the Iron Hand, emerged as a significant threat. Led by a ruthless enforcer named Victor Kane, they sought to reclaim power at any cost. Kane had once been a high-ranking officer in the Council's security forces, and he despised the idea of sharing authority with ordinary citizens. To him, the rebellion was nothing more than chaos unleashed, and he vowed to restore what he saw as order. Kane's first major strike came without warning. A convoy carrying medical supplies to a struggling colony on Europa was ambushed, leaving dozens dead and the cargo destroyed. The attack sent shockwaves through the solar system, reigniting fears that the Council's influence hadn't been completely eradicated. Ethan, Mia, and Daniel gathered in a secure facility to discuss how to respond. The mood was grim as they reviewed footage of the attack. Bodies lay scattered across the icy terrain, and smoke billowed from burning vehicles. It was a stark reminder of the violence that still threatened their fragile peace. "We can't let this stand," Ethan said, his voice firm despite the anger simmering beneath the surface. "If we don't act, they'll think they can get away with anything." "But we're stretched thin as it is," Mia pointed out. "We've barely stabilized the colonies. If we divert resources to hunt down these groups, we risk undoing all the progress we've made." Daniel leaned forward, his expression resolute. "Then we hit them hard and fast. We take out their leader, and the rest will fall apart." After much deliberation, they decided on a bold plan. Infiltrate the Iron Hand's base of operations and capture Victor Kane. Intelligence reports suggested that Kane was hiding in an abandoned mining facility on Mercury, a location chosen for its isolation and harsh conditions. It wouldn't be easy, but they had no choice. A team was assembled, consisting of Ethan, Mia, Daniel, and a small group of trusted allies. Each member brought unique skills to the mission: Ethan's technical expertise, Mia's strategic mind, and Daniel's combat training. Before departing, they held a final briefing, going over every detail of the operation. "This isn't just about stopping Kane," Rachel's sister Sarah said during the meeting. She had joined the Alliance after Rachel's death, determined to carry on her legacy. It's about showing everyone that we won't tolerate fear tactics or violence. We're building something better and nothing will stop us." Her words resonated deeply with the team. They knew the risks involved, but they also understood the importance of succeeding. Failure would embolden the Iron Hand and undermine the provisional government's authority. The journey to Mercury was grueling. The planet's extreme temperatures and barren landscape made travel difficult, and the team had to rely on specialized suits to survive. As they approached the mining facility, they moved cautiously, avoiding detection by patrolling drones and automated defenses. Inside the facility, the air was thick with tension. Shadows danced along the walls as the team navigated narrow corridors, littered with debris. Ethan hacked into security cameras, looping footage to mask their presence, while Mia monitored communications to pinpoint Kane's location. Daniel led the way, his weapon ready in case of ambush. Finally, they reached the central chamber where Kane was overseeing operations. Surrounded by armed guards, he stood confidently, barking orders into a communicator. Seeing an opportunity, Ethan triggered a power surge, plunging the room into darkness. Chaos erupted as alarms blared and lights flickered. Using the confusion to their advantage, Daniel and his team sprang into action. Shots rang out, echoing through the chamber as the guards scrambled to regain control. Despite being outnumbered, the rebels fought with precision and determination. One by one, the guards fell, until only Kane remained. Cornered and furious, Kane drew his weapon, but before he could fire, Sarah stepped forward, her own gun trained on him. "It's over," she said, her voice steady. "You lost." Kane sneered, his face twisted with hatred. "You think this changes anything? You're weak. Humanity doesn't deserve freedom. It needs control." "No," Sarah replied, lowering her weapon slightly. "What humanity deserves is hope, and you're standing in the way of that." With Kane captured, the team regrouped and secured the facility. News of their success spread quickly, dealing a crippling blow to the Iron Hand and other anti-rebellion factions. Without their leader, the group dissolved into disarray, unable to mount further attacks. Back on Earth, celebrations broke out once again. People cheered the bravery of the team, hailing them as heroes. But Ethan, Mia, Daniel, and Sarah knew their work wasn't done. There would always be challenges, always those who resisted change, but they were ready to face them head-on. In the months that followed, the provisional government grew stronger. Colonies thrived, economies stabilized, and communities rebuilt. Schools reopened, farms flourished, and factories hummed with activity. For the first time in decades, humanity felt united, not by force but by choice. Ethan often reflected on how far they'd come. From leaking documents in a cramped apartment to dismantling the council and defeating the Iron Hand, their journey had been extraordinary. He thought of Rachel, whose courage had sparked the rebellion, and of all those who had sacrificed everything for the cause. Mia found solace in knowing that her work had helped create a fairer world. She continued advocating for transparency, ensuring that the mistakes of the past wouldn't be repeated. Daniel, now a respected leader, inspired others to believe in themselves and their ability to make a difference. As for Sarah, she carried Rachel's memory with her wherever she went. Whether addressing crowds or mentoring young activists, she reminded everyone that freedom wasn't free. It required vigilance, effort, and unity. And so, life moved forward. Humanity's fury had erupted, shaking off the chains of oppression and forging a new path. The road ahead was uncertain, but together they faced it with hope. Among the stars, a brighter future awaited, one where everyone had a voice and no one was left behind.